Elon Musk just went live on global television and shattered the career of Britain's Prime Minister in a way no one saw coming. This isn't a political debate. This isn't a staged argument or a minor scandal. This is a full-scale revelation that exposes the heart of a police state operating in the shadows. Every move, every arrest, every cover-up has been broadcast to hundreds of millions of people in real time. And now the world is watching Britain crumble under the weight of its own corruption. If you think your government is untouchable, think again. What Musk revealed tonight is more than shocking. It's historic. On October 4th, 2025, the world watched in disbelief as Elon Musk went on live television, targeting the British Prime Minister in a manner that was both fearless and unprecedented. Musk didn't hold back. He presented evidence, named names, and exposed a government that has been quietly undermining the very principles it was sworn to protect. This wasn't about partisan politics. This was about justice, accountability, and the terrifying power of a state that treats speech as a crime. Citizens have been jailed, voices silenced, and children abandoned, all while the elite continued their comfortable lives untouched. The stark contrast between the cruelty of those in power and the innocence of those affected created a storm that could no longer be ignored. The spark that ignited Musk's intervention was not a business dispute or personal grievance. It was the systematic silencing of ordinary citizens. People were being arrested for social media posts, for expressing outrage over injustice, for asking questions that were inconvenient for those in power. Bernice Borth, a 55-year-old woman from Cheshire, shared a post online. She was not violent. She was not dangerous. Yet she faced jail time simply for amplifying information already in circulation. Peter Lynch, a 61-year-old grandfather, attended a protest without causing harm and was thrown into a cell where despair ultimately claimed his life. These were not isolated incidents. They were a pattern. A clear message had been sent. In modern Britain, words were more dangerous than crimes. Musk's reaction was immediate and explosive. He didn't send a private message or request a meeting behind closed doors. He went straight to the people, leveraging the most powerful digital megaphone in history. With a platform reaching over 200 million users worldwide, he broadcast every injustice, every abuse of power, and every instance of government silence. As suddenly the world could see the stark reality of a country where protecting the powerful was prioritised over protecting children, where punishing citizens for speaking the truth was more important than pursuing real criminals. The scale of the revelations was staggering. Over decades, organised gangs had abused thousands of children across Britain in towns like Rotherham, Telford, Newcastle, and Oxford. Hundreds of victims were trafficked, assaulted, and treated as objects, often under the watchful eyes of officials who chose inaction over intervention. Social workers, police officers, and politicians had long been aware of the atrocities. Yet the fear of political backlash, accusations of racism, or the perceived complexity of cases prevented them from acting. Under the Prime Minister's watch, these children were abandoned, their testimonies dismissed, and their suffering ignored. The memo leaked in 2008 explicitly instructed authorities to avoid investigations that might appear discriminatory, effectively sanctioning inaction. Musk shined a harsh light on this system. Every dropped case, every silenced victim, every ignored warning became ammunition in his campaign. He revealed that the current Prime Minister had played a direct role in allowing these horrors to continue, prioritising political safety over justice for children. With this revelation live on television, the narrative could no longer be controlled. International media, politicians, and citizens alike began demanding answers. The British government tried to deflect, claiming foreign interference and accusing Musk of spreading falsehoods. But the evidence was undeniable. Court documents, official records, case files all corroborated Musk's claims. This was more than a scandal. This was a direct challenge to the traditional balance of power. Musk wasn't just calling out mistakes or criticising policy. He was demonstrating that in the digital age, truth can travel faster than lies and that a single voice is amplified globally. could hold even the most entrenched governments accountable. Ordinary citizens' long silence now had a platform for their outrage, and the world could see the consequences of ignoring it. Musk's live broadcast forced Britain to confront a terrifying reality. Its government had become a police state where justice was selective, speech was criminalised, and corruption was shielded by bureaucracy. Even beyond Britain, the implications were profound. Leaders across Europe, the Americas, and Asia were watching closely, realising that the old rules no longer applied. When a private citizen with unprecedented reach exposes crimes and abuses that authorities ignored for decades, the consequences ripple far beyond one country. Musk's intervention became a case study for the power of digital accountability, challenging centuries of governance and forcing the world to rethink the limits of authority, transparency, and justice. The shockwaves from Musk's live broadcast didn't stop with public outrage. They reached the highest levels of government and the royal household. Overnight questions that had been buried for decades resurfaced. Why were thousands of children abandoned by the very system meant to protect them? Why were ordinary citizens being punished for speaking the truth while the guilty walked free? The pressure mounted, and the Prime Minister, once seemingly untouchable, found himself exposed on a global stage. Every tweet, every post, every mention of the scandal fueled a tidal wave of accountability that the government could no longer contain. The old tactics of secrecy and bureaucratic deflection had failed. Musk had shown the world that the era of controlling information through intimidation and silence was over. Across Britain, ordinary citizens began realising the gravity of the moment. People who had long felt powerless suddenly saw the impact of one man using his digital influence to enforce justice. Reform UK surged in polls, capitalising on the growing dissatisfaction with a government that had prioritised politics over human life. Their leader, Nigel Farage, appeared alongside Musk on international platforms, amplifying the message that the Prime Minister's time in office was at an end. Starmer's approval ratings plummeted as members of his own party began questioning the morality and legality of their leadership. The elite attempts to discredit Musk as a foreign agitator fell flat. With every accusation, he responded with irrefutable evidence, systematically dismantling the government's defences and exposing every lie they had tried to hide from the public eye. The narrative Musk created was relentless. He didn't merely report injustices, he framed a stark choice for Britain: continue down the path of secrecy, repression and selective justice, or confront the full weight of accountability and restore faith in governance. The Prime Minister's complicity in mass child abuse cover-ups, the unjust imprisonment of citizens for expressing opinions, and the blatant hypocrisy of law enforcement became a focal point of global discussion. International media outlets amplified the revelations, ensuring that the world could not look away. As scrutiny intensified, the government found itself trapped between public fury and a digital powerhouse that could reach every corner of the globe instantly. Musk's influence extended beyond words. His control over critical infrastructure, like the Starlink satellite network, created economic leverage that governments could not ignore. Markets reacted to his statements, and the weight of global attention became a tool of political pressure unlike anything in modern history. Every failure of the British government, every injustice ignored or concealed, became part of a growing dossier that Musk used to systematically weaken the Prime Minister's position. Citizens, once silenced, now saw a new model of power, one where transparency, reach and truth could overpower entrenched authority. It was a new era where digital accountability challenged centuries-old institutions and made it clear that concealment and coercion were no longer effective tools of governance. The live broadcast also highlighted the moral chasm within Britain's leadership. Citizens learned that Peter Lynch's death in a jail cell, Benny Borth's arrest, and thousands of other injustices were not accidents or oversights. They were the direct consequence of a government that had chosen control over compassion, politics over protection. Musk framed these events in a way that was impossible to ignore, clear, concise, and emotionally devastating. His broadcast demonstrated the power imbalance between ordinary people and those in authority. revealing the stark truth that when governments fail, digital platforms can hold them accountable in real time. The reaction was immediate. Social media erupted, trending hashtags dominated news cycles, and international leaders could no longer dismiss the scandal as a domestic issue. Musk's broadcast transformed a political crisis into a global spectacle, forcing every country to reevaluate how they handle information, transparency, and justice. Britain had become a case study in what happens when government secrecy collides with digital empowerment. Citizens were no longer passive observers. They were participants in a movement that demanded change, fairness and accountability. The Prime Minister, once secure behind institutional shields, now faced unprecedented scrutiny that could dismantle his entire career. Musk's strategy was methodical. First, he illuminated the failures of government and exposed the hypocrisy that allowed abuses to persist. Then he leveraged international networks, allies and platforms to amplify pressure on the government, creating a situation where political survival became nearly impossible. Each revelation, broadcast live to millions, undermined confidence in the Prime Minister's ability to lead and questioned the very legitimacy of the current administration. The sheer scale of Musk's reach made resistance futile. Every attempt to silence him or discredit him was countered with verifiable evidence, demonstrating that the truth could no longer be hidden behind bureaucracy or legal intimidation. This wasn't merely a political confrontation, it was a seismic shift in the balance of power. Citizens witnessed a new kind of accountability emerge, where digital influence, transparency, and relentless exposure could directly challenge and even topple political authority. Musk's live broadcast did more than expose corruption. It redefined the relationship between government and the governed, proving that a single voice armed with truth and amplified globally could reshape a nation's political landscape. The Prime Minister's career, once seemingly secure, was now hanging by a thread as Britain faced an uncertain future under the intense glare of digital scrutiny. The events unfolding in real time posed fundamental questions for the modern world. Can governments maintain authority when truth travels faster than spin? Can corruption survive the age of global digital oversight? And most importantly, can citizens ever feel safe knowing that speaking out could cost them their freedom? Musk's intervention answered these questions with undeniable clarity. The British government had underestimated the power of one individual who could expose decades of negligence and abuse in a single live broadcast. History was being written in front of the world, and for the first time, ordinary people could see that digital accountability had the potential to challenge, reshape, and even overthrow the old systems of power.